The Ferrari's engine roared to life, not the stuttering, hesitant cough it had given for 3 weeks, not the uncertain wheeze that had humiliated 5 certified specialists and cost $8,247 in failed repairs. This was pure, clean, perfect. Elijah Blackwood stood beside the 488 GTB, his hands still oil-stained from the repair, his worn work boots planted firmly on the marble showroom floor. 50 people surrounded him, 50 witnesses, 50 phone cameras pointed at his face, recording every breath, every blink, every moment of this impossible victory. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward. She was 52 years old, had consulted for Ferrari's North American technical team for 18 years, and her hands were trembling. "Better than factory specifications," she said, her voice carrying across the silent showroom. "I've never seen this level of precision from a non-certified mechanic. Never, not in 25 years. The crowd erupted. Standing ovation, applause like thunder. But Elijah wasn't looking at them. He was looking at Vanessa Sterling. She stood alone at the back of the showroom. 45 years old, CEO, millionaire, owner of Prestige Motors Beverly Hills. Her face had gone the color of old paper. Her perfectly manicured hands clutched her phone like it might save her from drowning. It wouldn't. Elijah held up the Ferrari keys, the same keys she'd thrown at his feet 2 days ago, the same keys she'd dropped on marble floor like he was a dog who needed to learn his place. His voice was steady. The voice of a man who had nothing left to prove. "My grandma always said machines don't lie, people do." He looked directly at Vanessa Sterling. She was right about that. She was right about everything. The camera zoomed closer. Elijah's face filled the frame. 38 years old, black, single father, detailer, janitor. Invisible man who had just done the impossible. Behind him, the Ferrari idled perfectly. The sound of truth. The image froze. White text appeared across the screen 2 days earlier. The frame went black. 5:47 a.m. Elijah Blackwood's alarm didn't ring because he was already awake. He'd been awake since 4:30, lying in the darkness of his bedroom, listening to his son breathe in the next room. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, the kind of place where you could hear everything. Micah's breathing was steady, deep, the breathing of a child who still believed his father could fix anything. Elijah got up. The kitchen was barely big enough for 1 person. He moved through it silently, muscle memory guiding him in the pre-dawn darkness. Coffee first. Black, no sugar, then Micah's breakfast. Oatmeal with honey and sliced banana, the same breakfast Grandma Rose had made for him 30 years ago in Oakland. The photograph sat on the counter, faded, creased at the corners. Grandma Rose at 65 standing beside a Honda Civic with the hood up holding a wrench, like it was a natural extension of her hand. Behind her 14-year-old Elijah, grease on his face, grinning like he'd just discovered the secret to the universe. In a way he had. "Baby," she'd said that day, her voice rough from 40 years of cleaning hospital floors. "You listening? What do you hear?" Young Elijah had closed his eyes beneath that Civic, clicking near the exhaust, fast, regular. Good. What kind of clicking? Rhythmic, not random, something mechanical. "That's right, baby. Now find it." He'd spent 2 hours tracing that sound. His fingers moved across components, feeling for vibration. His ears pressed against metal, listening for resonance. Finally, he found it. A heat shield bracket, loose, vibrating against the pipe. "Got it!" he'd called out. Rose had examined his work, her experienced eyes confirming what his young ones had found. 3 mechanics told me that was transmission trouble. Wanted $1,200. And my 14-year-old grandson finds a $20 bracket. She'd sat beside him on the parking lot curb. "Baby, let me tell you something. Machines are honest. They don't lie, they don't pretend. When something's wrong, they tell you, but most people don't listen." "Why not?" "Because listening is hard, because people trust computers and degrees more than they trust their own senses." Rose had tapped her ear. "God gave you everything you need to understand machines. Eyes to see, ears to hear, hands to feel. The question is whether you're willing to use them." Elijah touched the photograph now. "I'm listening, Grandma. I'm still listening." At 6:15, Micah stumbled into the kitchen. 8 years old. Hair sticking up in 3 directions, wearing Superman pajamas that were getting too small. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, buddy. Sleep okay?" "Yeah." Micah climbed onto the chair, rubbed his eyes. "I had a dream you were famous, like on TV and everything." Elijah smiled. Set the oatmeal in front of his son. "What was I famous for? Fixing stuff nobody else could fix." Micah took a bite, looked up with those eyes that were exactly like his mother's. "You're already good at that, though." Something tightened in Elijah's chest. He turned away, poured more coffee he didn't need. "Eat up. We gotta leave in 20 minutes. The drive to Micah's school took 14 minutes through morning traffic. Elijah drove carefully always. 10 miles under the speed limit. Always signaling lane changes 3 seconds early. 15 years since the DUI. 15 years clean. But the fear never quite went away. They pulled up to Oakmont Elementary. Micah grabbed his backpack, then hesitated. "Dad?" "Yeah, buddy." "Trevor's mom asked what you do for work." Elijah kept his hands on the steering wheel. "What did you tell her?" "I said you're really smart, that you know how cars work better than anyone." Micah looked down. "She asked if you're an engineer. I said no, then she got quiet." The silence in the car was heavy. "Listen to me." Elijah turned to face his son. "What I do doesn't change who I am. You understand, I clean cars, I detail them, I make them look beautiful. That's honest work, that's good work. But you could do more, right? You're smart enough. Being smart isn't always enough, Micah. World wants papers, credentials, things I don't have. He touched his son's cheek. But that doesn't make me less, and it doesn't make you less. Remember that. Micah nodded, but Elijah could see the doubt. The same doubt he'd carried his whole life. Love you, Dad. Love you too, buddy. Have a good day. He watched Micah walk into the school, watched him disappear through doors that led to a world where fathers were supposed to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, not janitors, not detailers, not invisible. Elijah pulled back into traffic. His phone buzzed. Text message from the landlord: rent overdue $180. Pay by Friday or eviction proceedings begin. He deleted the message. He'd delete 10 more just like it before the week was over. The photograph of his wife sat in the sun visor clip. Aaliyah, 23 years old in the picture, smiling, pregnant. 3 weeks before Micah was born, 4 weeks before she died from complications during delivery. I'm trying, baby, Elijah whispered to the photograph. I'm trying to do right by him, by you, by all of it. The photograph smiled back. It always did. Prestige Motors, Beverly Hills opened at 9 a.m., but the staff arrived at 7:30. Elijah parked his 12-year-old Honda Accord in the employee lot 3 rows back from the building. The detailers always parked in the back. That was the rule, the unspoken rule, the kind that didn't need to be written down because everyone understood. Some people are born to clean, others are born to create. He grabbed his supply cart from the trunk. Everything had its place. Microfiber towels, spray bottles, brushes, and hidden beneath the mundane tools of his trade. The equipment that had cost him 3 months' salary. The oscilloscope app on a tablet disguised as inventory software. The thermal imaging camera built into a spray bottle casing. The digital stethoscope wrapped inside a shop towel. $4,500. Saved by eating ramen for dinner. Saved by skipping meals. Saved by sleeping in his car on weekends when the rent came due. And the choice was between a roof and knowledge. Elijah had chosen knowledge. Grandma Rose would have approved. He pushed the cart through the employee entrance past the break room where Raymond Sullivan was already pouring coffee. Ray was 55, white-head mechanic at Prestige Motors for 23 years. He looked up when Elijah entered. Morning, Eli. Morning, Ray. Big day today, VIP showcase. Sterling's got 50 millionaires coming in. Ray stirred his coffee, studied Elijah's face. You hear about the Ferrari? Which one? Sterling's personal car, the 488. Been stalling for 3 weeks. 5 specialists have looked at it, 5 certified experts. Ray shook his head. Over $8,000 in repairs and it's still broken. She's furious. Elijah kept his face neutral. That's tough. You ever take a look at it? I'm a detailer, Ray. I clean cars. I don't diagnose them. Ray was silent for a moment. Yeah, right. I forget sometimes. He didn't forget. Nobody forgot. But it was easier to pretend, easier to play the role, easier to stay invisible than to reach for something you weren't supposed to touch. Elijah pushed his cart toward the showroom. The Ferrari 488 GTB sat in the center of the floor like a wounded animal. Red, beautiful. $350,000 of Italian engineering that couldn't make it 3 blocks without dying. The hood was up. Diagnostic equipment surrounded it. Cables, computers, the debris of failed expertise. Elijah walked past it without stopping. That was the rule, too. Detailers didn't touch the broken cars, didn't offer opinions, didn't presume to know better than the certified specialists who made 6 figures while he made $31,000 a year. But as he passed, he listened, always listening. The engine was cool, now silent, but Elijah knew its voice. He'd been listening to it for 3 weeks. Late nights after everyone went home, early mornings before the showroom opened. Standing close enough to hear, but far enough not to be noticed. 847 hertz. That was the frequency of the problem. The harmonic resonance created by a failing aluminum bracket near the intake manifold. Microfractures invisible to the naked eye, invisible to computer diagnostics, invisible to anyone who didn't know how to listen. Elijah knew. He'd known for 3 weeks. He'd sent the report. Nobody read it. At 11:30, the VIP guests started arriving. Elijah was detailing a Lamborghini Aventador in the corner of the showroom. Invisible. That's where detailers belong during VIP events. Visible enough to show the cars were being cared for. Invisible enough not to disturb the real business. The guests were exactly what you'd expect. Millionaires, billionaires, men in custom suits that cost more than Elijah's annual salary. Women in designer dresses carrying purses that could pay Micah's school tuition for a year. They came for the spectacle, the showcase, the theater of wealth. Vanessa Sterling stood at the center of it all. 45 years old, blonde, beautiful in the way money makes you beautiful. Perfect skin, perfect teeth, perfect hair that hadn't moved in the Beverly Hills wind for 15 years. She wore white, always white, like purity was something you could purchase and display. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice carried across the showroom, amplified by the acoustics of marble and glass. Welcome to Prestige Motors. Today we're unveiling our exclusive collection. But first I want to address the elephant in the room. She gestured at the Ferrari behind her. This is my personal vehicle, a 488 GTB. $350,000, and for 3 weeks it's been experiencing an issue that 5 certified specialists haven't been able to solve. The crowd murmured. Interest peaked. 5 experts, combined experience of over 80 years, over $8,000 in diagnostic fees and repairs. Vanessa smiled, but there was something sharp beneath it. And it still won't run for more than 10 minutes without stalling. She picked up the Ferrari keys from the display table beside her. So today I'm making an offer. An experiment, if you will. Vanessa's eyes scanned the showroom. They landed on Elijah. "You, Mr. Blackwood, come here, please." 50 heads turned, 50 pairs of eyes found him, the detailer in the corner, the invisible man. Elijah set down his microfiber cloth. He walked across the showroom, his footsteps silent on the marble floor. He could feel their judgment, their curiosity, their assumption that whatever was about to happen, he deserved it. Vanessa smiled as he approached. The smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Blackwood has been with us for 6 months," she announced to the crowd. "He's our detail specialist, an excellent worker, very thorough." She paused. "Isn't that right, Mr. Blackwood?" "Yes, ma'am. And you've seen this Ferrari many times, I'm sure. Cleaned it, detailed it." "Yes, ma'am." Vanessa held up the keys. The crowd leaned forward, sensing something. "I'm going to make you an offer, Mr. Blackwood. The same offer I'd make to anyone. If you can fix this Ferrari, if you can solve the problem that 5 certified experts couldn't solve, the car is yours. $350,000, yours to keep." Someone in the crowd laughed. Elijah stood perfectly still. Vanessa's smile widened. She dropped the keys. They hit the marble floor with a sharp metallic clatter. The sound echoed through the showroom, through the phones that were already recording, through the moment that would define everything that came next. "Pick them up," Vanessa said, her voice honey and venom. "Pick them up and prove me wrong." 50 people watched. 50 witnesses to what happened next. Elijah looked at the keys on the floor. He looked at Vanessa Sterling. He looked at the crowd with their phones, their judgment, their certainty that they knew exactly how this would end. He bent down. The crowd held its breath, and Elijah Blackwood stood back up without touching the keys. His voice was measured, the voice of a man who had carried dignity through places where it wasn't welcome. "I'm not a dog, Ms. Sterling." The silence that followed was absolute. Vanessa's smile flickered, just for a second. But Elijah saw it. The loss of control, the flash of something that might have been fear or rage, or the sudden realization that the script she'd written wasn't being followed. Then she laughed. It was a calculated laugh, performative, designed to reclaim the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," she turned to her audience with theatrical grace, "this is exactly what I'm talking about. Some people are born to clean, others are born to create. It's just nature, the natural order of things." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. But not everyone was laughing. An older woman in the front row stood perfectly still, her eyes fixed on Elijah's face. Catherine Whitmore, 62 years old, self-made billionaire, owner of 15 exotic cars and a reputation for seeing things other people missed. She wasn't smiling. Vanessa bent down herself, picked up the keys, and held them in front of Elijah's face. "You see this car?" She gestured at the Ferrari behind her. "5 mechanics have failed to fix it. 5 certified specialists with decades of experience. You know what they all had in common." Elijah said nothing. Credentials, training, education. Vanessa's voice dropped to something almost intimate. "Things you will never have." She pushed the keys into Elijah's shirt pocket, patted them twice like she was praising a pet. "The Ferrari's yours if you can fix it, but we both know you can't." She leaned closer, her whisper loud enough for the front row to hear. "So why don't you go back to your corner where you belong?" She walked away. The crowd parted for her like water around stone. Elijah stood alone in the center of the showroom, the keys pressing against his chest through his shirt pocket. His hands at his sides, his expression absolutely composed. But his eyes followed Vanessa Sterling with the patience of a man who had learned to wait, who had learned that some battles aren't won with anger, who had learned from a woman who cleaned hospital floors for 40 years that dignity isn't something they can take. It's something you either carry or you don't. Elijah carried it now. All the way back to his corner, all the way back to invisible. But Catherine Whitmore's eyes never left him. The showcase ended at 2 p.m. Elijah cleaned in silence while the VIP guests filtered out their laughter and champagne glasses, leaving behind only the echo of wealth and the certainty of their own importance. Ray Sullivan found him in the service corridor 20 minutes later. "Jesus Christ, Eli." Ray was sweating, his face flushed. "What the hell was that?" Elijah continued organizing his cleaning supplies. "What was what? Don't play dumb with me. You just publicly challenged Vanessa Sterling in front of 50 clients. On camera." "I didn't challenge anyone, I just didn't pick up the keys." "That's the same damn thing." Ray ran his hands through his thinning hair. "Do you have any idea what she's capable of? And you just did that in front of Catherine Hayes." Elijah paused. Catherine Hayes was there. Front row, watching everything. Ray lowered his voice. "She's worth $200 million, owns 15 exotic cars, been considering a major order, and now she just witnessed that entire spectacle." "That's not my problem. It's everyone's problem." Ray grabbed Elijah's arm, then immediately released it when he saw Elijah's expression. "Look, man, I like you. You're good people. But if things go sideways, Prestige Motors could be finished. And Sterling will make sure you never work in this industry again." Elijah returned to organizing his supplies, the oscilloscope hidden in the tablet, the thermal camera disguised as a spray bottle, the tools of truth hiding in plain sight. "Ray, can I ask you something?" What? You ever look at the Ferrari, really look at it? Ray frowned. What do you mean? The bracket, near the intake manifold, second bolt from the left. Eli, I don't. Just humor me. Tomorrow morning, before anyone else gets here, take a jeweler's loop. Look at that bracket, the bolt hole. You'll see fracture lines. Ray stared at him. How would you know that? Because I looked. You're a detailer. I'm a lot of things, Ray. Elijah held up the spray bottle with the hidden thermal camera. But I've never been just a detailer. Ray took the bottle, turned it over in his hands. His eyes widened when he realized what he was holding. Where did you get this? Bought it. 3 months' salary. Same with the oscilloscope. Same with the acoustic analysis tools. Elijah met Ray's eyes. I know what's wrong with that Ferrari, Ray. I've known for 3 weeks. Then why didn't you say anything? I did. I submitted a diagnostic report 3 weeks ago. Detailed analysis, root cause identification, repair procedure, everything. I never saw a report. It went to spam. Elijah's voice was level, because it came from the detail guy trying to play mechanic. Ray was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, thoughtful. Eli, what are you going to do? What do you mean? Sterling gave you the keys in front of everyone, said the car was yours if you could fix it. She was mocking me. Doesn't matter. 50 people heard her say it. 50 people recorded it. Ray paused. If you actually fix that Ferrari, she'd never honor it. You know that. Maybe, maybe not. Ray glanced toward the showroom. But Catherine Hayes would know. Everyone would know. And Vanessa Sterling would have to explain why she went back on her word in front of Beverly Hills' entire luxury car community. Elijah considered this. I'm not saying you should do it, Ray added quickly. I'm just saying if you wanted to, this might be your only chance to stop being invisible. Heavy footsteps approached down the corridor. Both men turned. Vanessa Sterling stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, her face carved from stone. Ray, my office now. Ray shot Elijah a worried look and hurried away. Vanessa didn't follow immediately. She stood there staring at Elijah, her eyes moving over his face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. You surprised me, she said finally. Did I? Most people in your position would have picked up those keys without hesitation, would have accepted the humiliation as the price of keeping their job. Most people aren't me. Vanessa's lips curved slightly. No, they're not. She took a step closer. Who are you, Elijah Blackwood, really? I'm the detail specialist. You said so yourself. Don't play games with me. I saw how you looked at that Ferrari, like you knew something. Elijah kept his expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Vanessa studied him for another long moment. Then she nodded as if confirming something to herself. The showcase continues tomorrow. Same time, same clients, the ones who haven't already fled. Her voice hardened. I want every vehicle spotless. I want the Ferrari detailed twice, and I want you invisible. Invisible. Gone. Out of sight. I don't want to see your face, hear your voice, or be reminded that you exist. She turned to leave, then paused. And Elijah, those keys in your pocket. They're not yours. They never will be. That was theater, entertainment. If you actually tried to start that car, I'd have you arrested for theft. She walked away, her heels clicking against the corridor floor until the sound faded to nothing. Elijah stood alone in the service corridor. He pulled out the Ferrari keys and looked at them in the fluorescent light. Theater. Entertainment. Maybe. But Vanessa Sterling had made a promise in front of 50 witnesses. And Elijah Blackwood had learned that the best revenge wasn't anger. It was patience. It was listening. It was knowing something nobody else knew and waiting for exactly the right moment to speak. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Blackwood. A woman's voice. Older. Cultured. Familiar. Who's asking? My name is Catherine Whitmore. We haven't been formally introduced, but I believe you made quite an impression on me today. Elijah's grip tightened on the phone. Mrs. Whitmore, how did you get this number? I have resources. A pause. I also have questions. Questions about what I witnessed today. I'm not sure what you mean. Mr. Blackwood, I didn't become wealthy by being naive. I watched you during that showcase. While Vanessa Sterling was performing for the crowd, you were watching the Ferrari. Not the drama. The car. And you were watching it like someone who understood what they were seeing. Elijah said nothing. I've been in the luxury automotive world for 30 years, Catherine continued. I've seen mechanics, engineers, specialists of every kind. I know what expertise looks like, and I saw it in you. With respect, Mrs. Whitmore, I'm a detailer. With respect, Mr. Blackwood, that's nonsense. Catherine's tone was pleasant but firm. I did some research after I left, made a few calls, asked about the detail specialist who didn't pick up the keys. Elijah waited. Nobody knows anything about you. You appeared at Prestige Motors 6 months ago. No employment history before that, at least none that shows up easily. No social media presence. No online footprint. Catherine paused. You're a ghost, Mr. Blackwood, and ghosts don't exist without reasons. Maybe I just value my privacy. Maybe. Or maybe there's a story that would explain why a man with your obvious intelligence is cleaning cars for $15 an hour while a woman like Vanessa Sterling runs the show. Elijah was silent for a long moment. What do you want, Mrs. Whitmore? I want to watch you fix that Ferrari. I'm sorry. Vanessa Sterling announced yesterday publicly on video in front of 50 witnesses that the car belongs to whoever can fix it. She was mocking you. We both know that. But words have consequences, and I'm very interested to see what happens when consequences arrive. Mrs. Sterling made it clear that offer wasn't real. Mrs. Sterling doesn't get to decide what's real once 50 people have recorded her saying it. Catherine's voice hardened. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Blackwood. I was going to give Vanessa Sterling a $2.3 million order. 3 Lamborghinis. But after what I saw yesterday, not just how she treated you, but how she treats everyone, I'm reconsidering. That's between you and her. It was, until she made it public. Until she turned her contempt into entertainment and expected people like me to applaud. Catherine paused. I don't applaud bullies, Mr. Blackwood. I dismantle them. Elijah felt something shift in his chest, a door opening that he'd kept locked for a long time. What exactly are you proposing? The showcase continues tomorrow, 1 p.m. Vanessa is desperate to repair the damage, which means she'll be on her best behavior, at least initially. But her Ferrari will still be broken, and she'll still be humiliated every time someone asks about it. Catherine's voice dropped. I think you should fix it, in front of everyone with cameras rolling. Mrs. Whitmore, even if I could fix that car, and I'm not saying I can, Vanessa would never let me touch it. She won't have a choice. Not if the right people are watching. Not if the right pressure is applied. Catherine paused. I have a colleague, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, professor of mechanical engineering at UCLA, consultant for Ferrari's North American technical team. She's agreed to attend tomorrow as my guest. A Ferrari consultant. The Ferrari consultant. If she validates your work publicly, professionally, on the record, Vanessa Sterling won't be able to dismiss you as the cleaning guy. She'll have to acknowledge what you've done. Elijah was silent for a long moment. Why? He finally asked. Why do you care what happens to me? Because I'm tired of watching talented people get crushed by mediocre ones. Catherine's voice softened. And because someone helped me once a long time ago when I was nobody. When I was invisible, and I've been waiting for the chance to return that favor. Elijah looked around his small apartment. At the photograph of Grandma Rose, at Micah's drawing on the refrigerator showing his father as a superhero. 1 p.m., he said. I'll make sure you have access. Dr. Rodriguez will be watching. The rest is up to you. The line went dead. Elijah sat in the darkness, holding the phone, feeling the weight of what was coming. 6 months of humiliation, 6 months of being invisible, 6 months of knowing he was smarter than everyone who looked down on him. It all ended tomorrow, one way or another. He walked to Micah's bedroom door, opened it quietly. His son was asleep, clutching a stuffed elephant that had been his mother's. I'm going to do something tomorrow, buddy, Elijah whispered. Something that might change everything. And I need you to know whatever happens, I'm doing it for you. so you never have to feel invisible. Micah shifted in his sleep but didn't wake. Elijah closed the door. He spent the rest of the night reviewing his diagnostic data, the thermal signatures he'd mapped over 3 weeks, the acoustic frequencies he'd recorded at 847 hertz. The solution that 5 specialists had missed because they were looking at computer screens instead of listening. At 5 a.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow you show them who you really are. I'll be there." KW Elijah looked at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the photograph of Grandma Rose. "You ready for this, Grandma?" he whispered to the image. "Because I think it's finally time." The photograph smiled back. It always did. The morning of the second showcase arrived cold and clear. Elijah woke at 4:30, got up immediately, and made coffee strong enough to strip paint. His hands were steady. They were always steady. Grandma Rose had taught him that fear was natural, but showing it was optional. Control what you can control. Your breathing, your hands, your voice. Everything else is just noise. Elijah controlled his breathing now. In through the nose, 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out through the mouth for 6. The rhythm of patience. His phone lit up on the counter. 6:03 a.m. Text message from Catherine Whitmore. "Dr. Rodriguez arrives at 12:30. I'll handle Sterling. You handle the truth." Elijah typed back. "Understood." At 6:45, Micah wandered into the kitchen wearing different Superman pajamas. "Big day, Dad." Elijah poured orange juice, set it in front of his son. "Why do you say that? You're wearing your nice shirt, the blue one. You only wear that for important stuff. Smart kid." "Yeah, buddy, big day. What's happening?" Elijah sat down across from Micah. 8 years old enough to understand some things. "You remember yesterday at my work, the lady who was mean?" Micah nodded, his face serious. "The one who dropped the keys. Yeah, her. Well, today I'm going to show her something." "Show her what?" "That being smart doesn't need permission." Micah thought about this while he ate his cereal. Then he looked up with those eyes that were exactly like Aaliyah's. "Grandma Rose would be proud of you." Elijah had to look away, had to blink hard against something that wasn't quite tears. "Yeah, buddy. I hope so." They drove to school in silence. Comfortable silence. The kind that happens between people who understand each other without needing words. At the drop-off, Micah grabbed his backpack, then hesitated. "Dad, if something bad happens today, we'll be okay, right?" Elijah wanted to promise. Wanted to say yes, absolutely nothing bad will happen. But Grandma Rose had taught him never to lie to children. "I don't know what'll happen today, Micah, but I know this. Whatever happens, I'm your dad. That doesn't change. We'll figure it out together." Micah nodded. "Okay." Love you. Love you too, buddy. He watched his son walk through the school doors, watched until Micah disappeared. Then Elijah pulled back into traffic and drove toward Prestige Motors, toward the truth. Prestige Motors was already buzzing when Elijah arrived at 8 a.m. Staff hurried between vehicles, adjusting displays, checking every detail. The tension was thick. Everyone knew yesterday had been a disaster. Everyone knew Vanessa Sterling would be looking for someone to blame. Ray Sullivan caught Elijah in the parking lot. "Did you think about what I said?" "I did. And I'm going to fix the Ferrari." Ray's face went pale. "Jesus, Eli, you're serious." "I've never been more serious. She'll destroy you, you know that, right? Even if you fix it." "Ray." Elijah put his hand on the older man's shoulder. "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "That jeweler's loop, the one you use for inspecting paint chips. I need to borrow it." Ray studied Elijah's face for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small magnifying device. "You already know what you're going to find, don't you?" "Yeah, but everyone else needs to see it too." Ray handed over the loop. "I looked at that bracket this morning like you said, and 5 fracture lines radiating from the bolt hole, exactly where you said they'd be." Ray's voice dropped to a whisper. "How did you see that?" "I didn't see it. I heard it. 847 hertz, the frequency of aluminum under thermal stress." Elijah pocketed the loop. "You just have to know how to listen." "Where'd you learn that?" "My grandma. She cleaned hospital floors for 40 years, but she understood machines better than most engineers." Ray was silent. Then, "She teach you anything else?" "Yeah. She taught me that dignity isn't something they can take. It's something you either carry or you don't." They walked into the building together. Vanessa Sterling arrived at 10:30. Elijah was detailing a Porsche 911 in the far corner when she entered. He didn't look up, but he felt her presence, felt the weight of her attention scanning the room. Her heels clicked across the marble. Sharp, precise. She walked directly to the Ferrari, stood there for a long moment looking at it like it had personally betrayed her. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Where's the specialist from Ferrari HQ? You said he'd be here by 11. Pause. "I don't care about traffic. I'm paying $15,000. He can figure out the 405. Another pause. "Fine, 12:30. But if he's 1 minute late, I'm canceling the check." She hung up, turned around. Her eyes found Elijah immediately. He kept working. Microfiber cloth moving in slow circles, invisible. That's what she wanted. Vanessa walked toward him, stopped 3 feet away. "Mr. Blackwood." He straightened up, met her eyes. "Ms. Sterling, I trust you received my instructions yesterday about being invisible." "Yes, ma'am." "Good, because today is crucial. I have important clients returning. Catherine Whitmore, people who could fund this dealership for the next year." Her voice dropped. I need perfection today. Can you give me that? I can give you clean cars, ma'am. That's what I do. Something flickered across Vanessa's face. Suspicion, curiosity. You're very composed, Mr. Blackwood. Most people in your position would be terrified after yesterday. I don't terrify easily. No, I'm starting to see that. She studied him. Did you sleep well last night? Well enough. No nightmares, no anxiety about job security. My job is to detail cars. I detailed them yesterday. I'll detail them today. Vanessa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Don't get cocky, Mr. Blackwood. Yesterday was theater. Today is business. And in business, people who overstep tend to find themselves unemployed. She walked away before Elijah could respond. Ray appeared at his elbow 30 seconds later. She's rattled. I noticed. You're getting under her skin. She doesn't know what to do with you. Ray glanced around. Catherine Whitmore called her this morning, told her she was bringing a guest, a Ferrari consultant. Sterling nearly had a heart attack. Good. Eli, are you sure about this? Elijah looked at the Ferrari sitting in the center of the showroom. Red, beautiful, broken. I've been going backward for 6 months, Ray. Invisible, ignored. Today I go forward. What if you fail? I won't. How can you be so sure? Elijah pulled out his phone, showed Ray the diagnostic data he'd been collecting for 3 weeks. Thermal signatures, acoustic frequencies, vibration patterns mapped to the decimal point. Because I've already fixed it in my head 50 times. All I have to do now is make my hands follow. Ray whistled low. You've been preparing, not hoping. Preparing. There's a difference. What's the difference? Hoping is wishing something works out. Preparing is making sure it does. At 12:15, the VIP guests started arriving. Fewer than yesterday. Word had spread, but the ones who came were the serious buyers. Catherine Whitmore arrived at 12:30 exactly. She wasn't alone. The woman beside her was 52, silver-haired, wearing elegant glasses and carrying herself with quiet confidence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Elijah felt the last piece click into place. Vanessa greeted them at the entrance, her smile bright and desperate. Catherine, so glad you could return, and you've brought a guest. Vanessa, this is Dr. Elena Rodriguez, UCLA Engineering Department. She consults for Ferrari's technical team. Something flickered across Vanessa's face, not quite fear, not quite anger. Something between. Dr. Rodriguez, what an honor. Are you interested in adding to your collection? I'm interested in automotive excellence. Dr. Rodriguez's handshake was brief, professional. Catherine tells me you have a Ferrari that's been giving you trouble. A minor mechanical issue, nothing significant. 5 specialists in 3 weeks, over $8,000 in failed repairs. Dr. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound minor. Where did you? Vanessa stopped herself, took a breath. The situation is under control. I have a specialist arriving from headquarters this afternoon. Actually, Catherine said, her voice pleasant but firm, I was hoping you might let your detail specialist take a look. The showroom went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Vanessa's smile vanished. Excuse me, Elijah Blackwood. Catherine gestured toward the corner. The gentleman from yesterday. I understand he has some ideas about what might be wrong. That's absurd. Vanessa's voice rose. He's a janitor. He cleans cars. He doesn't. He submitted a diagnostic report 3 weeks ago. Catherine pulled out her phone, showed Vanessa the screen. I have a copy, detailed thermal analysis, acoustic frequency measurements, complete identification of root cause and recommended repair procedure. Vanessa's face went pale. How did you get that? Does it matter? The question is, why didn't you read it? The crowd was growing. People drifting closer, sensing drama, phones appearing. This is ridiculous, Vanessa sputtered. I'm not going to let some cleaning person touch my $350,000 vehicle based on. Then let me verify it. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. I've spent 20 years studying Ferrari engineering. If this man's analysis is wrong, I'll know within 5 minutes. If it's right. She paused. Well, then you have a bigger problem than a broken car. Vanessa looked around wildly. Clients watching, cameras recording. Catherine Whitmore's steady gaze. She was trapped. Fine, she spat. Let him try. Let him embarrass himself. She turned to Elijah, her eyes blazing. You have 1 hour. When you fail, and you will fail, you're fired. And I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. Elijah set down his cleaning cloth. He walked to the Ferrari. He pulled the keys from his pocket and smiled. The crowd parted as Elijah approached the Ferrari. 50 pairs of eyes, maybe more. The weight of their judgment pressed against his back. But Elijah had stopped caring about judgment. He reached the Ferrari and stood there for a moment. Just looking. Just listening. The car was silent now, engine cold, but Elijah knew its voice. Had memorized every frequency, every vibration. Well, Vanessa's voice cut through the silence. We're waiting. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Elijah didn't respond. Instead, he walked to his supply cart and began pulling out his equipment. The infrared thermometer hidden in the spray bottle casing. The digital stethoscope wrapped in the shop rag. The vibration sensors, the tablet with his diagnostic software. Dr. Rodriguez moved closer, her eyes widening as she recognized the equipment. Those are professional-grade diagnostic tools, she said quietly. Where did you get them? Bought them myself. They cost thousands. 3 months' salary. Elijah arranged the tools on a clean cloth. Took me a year to save up, another year to learn how to use them properly. Dr. Rodriguez studied his face. You're self-taught. My grandmother taught me the basics, the rest I figured out. Your grandmother was a mechanic. Elijah paused. My grandmother was a janitor, just like me. But she understood machines better than any I've ever met. He turned back to the Ferrari and remembered her voice from that parking lot in Oakland. The lesson that started everything. Baby, you listening? What do you hear? Elijah pressed the digital stethoscope against the Ferrari's engine block, moved it systematically, listening. The crowd watched in confused silence. What exactly is he doing? Someone whispered. Acoustic analysis. Dr. Rodriguez spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. He's listening for abnormal vibration frequencies, a diagnostic technique most modern mechanics have abandoned for computerized systems. Abandoned because it doesn't work. Vanessa cut in. Computers are precise, human ears are unreliable. Actually, Dr. Rodriguez's tone was professionally neutral. The human ear can detect frequency variations that standard equipment misses, particularly in cases involving harmonic resonance. Vanessa's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping in. Elijah continued his examination. Stethoscope pressed against specific points. The skepticism in the crowd slowly transformed into curiosity. There, Elijah straightened up, pointed to a spot near the intake manifold. That's the source. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. May I? Elijah handed her the stethoscope. She pressed it against the location he'd indicated, closed her eyes, concentrated. 1 moment passed, 2. Then her eyes opened wide. I hear it, she said softly. 847 hertz, maybe 850, with a secondary harmonic around 1240. 1239.8, Elijah corrected. I measured it 3 weeks ago. Dr. Rodriguez stared at him. You identified the exact frequency without spectrum analysis equipment. I have good ears. You have exceptional ears. I've worked with Ferrari engineers who couldn't identify frequencies that precisely without electronic assistance. Vanessa pushed through the crowd. What does any of this mean? So he can hear something. Hearing isn't fixing. It means he's identified the problem 5 specialists couldn't find. Dr. Rodriguez handed the stethoscope back. The vibration frequency he's describing is consistent with aluminum component failure under thermal stress. If I had to guess, there's a bracket that's developed microfractures. Elijah pulled out his infrared thermometer, began mapping the engine bay's temperature distribution. Numbers appeared on his tablet, building a thermal profile invisible to the naked eye. This spot here, he indicated a location, 23 degrees hotter than baseline, metal on metal contact where there shouldn't be any. How do you know baseline temperature? I've been tracking this car's thermal signatures for 3 weeks. Every morning when Miss Sterling arrives, every evening when she leaves, I know exactly what normal looks like. The crowd murmured. Several people leaned in to see the tablet. And this area. Elijah moved the thermometer to a nearby heat sink. 18 degrees cooler than specification. The bracket failure is preventing proper thermal transfer. Dr. Rodriguez pulled out her own thermometer, verified his readings. Her face showed professional admiration. "He's right," she announced. "These thermal variations are exactly what you'd expect from the type of failure he's describing." "This is ridiculous." Vanessa's voice had risen. "He's making this up. Anyone can point at engine parts and throw around numbers." "Then let's test it." Elijah met her eyes. "I'll show you exactly what's broken and exactly how to fix it. If I'm wrong, you fire me. If I'm right, you keep your promise." The crowd went silent. Catherine Whitmore smiled. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Vanessa's face twisted through several emotions. Rage, fear, calculation. But she was trapped. 50 witnesses, cameras everywhere, a UCLA professor verifying every claim. "Fine," she spat. "Show us your brilliant repair, but if you damage my car, I won't damage your car, Ms. Sterling." Elijah's voice was level. "I'm going to make it run better than it has since it left the factory." He reached for Ray's jeweler's loop, leaned into the engine bay, began examining the area he'd identified. "Here." He stepped back, offered the loop to Dr. Rodriguez. "Look at the mounting bracket. Second bolt from the left, you'll need good light." Dr. Rodriguez accepted the loop, examined the spot. Her sharp intake of breath was audible. "Microfractures," she said, "radiating from the bolt hole in a classic stress pattern. I can see at least 3 distinct fracture lines." 5, Elijah corrected. 2 are hidden by the bracket flange, but they're there. Vanessa grabbed the loop, shouldered past Dr. Rodriguez, stared at the bracket. Her face went pale. "I don't see anything." "The fractures are approximately 0.3 millimeters wide. You need to know what you're looking for." Elijah's voice held no satisfaction, just facts. 5 mechanics couldn't find this because they were looking at computer screens instead of the car. "Even if this is real," Vanessa said slowly, "replacing a bracket is a 5-minute job. Why would it cause 3 weeks of problems?" "Because it's not just about the bracket. It's about what happens when the bracket fails." Elijah pulled up his diagnostic report on the tablet, turned the screen toward the crowd. "When this bracket vibrates under specific thermal and load conditions, it creates harmonic resonance that disrupts the intake manifold seal. That causes irregular air-fuel mixture readings. The engine computer tries to compensate, but it can't correct for mechanical failure, so the engine stalls." He swiped to the next page. "The first mechanic replaced the ECU because that's what his computer suggested. But the computer was responding to bad data. The second mechanic replaced fuel injectors because air-fuel readings were inconsistent. Same problem, treating symptoms instead of disease. Another swipe. The third mechanic adjusted timing because combustion was irregular. The fourth ran every diagnostic protocol and found nothing because the problem only manifests under specific conditions that weren't replicated during testing. The fifth did the same with more expensive equipment. He showed a final screen. Total spent on unnecessary repairs, $8,247. Actual solution, $47 bracket. Vanessa's face had gone from pale to gray. You're saying all those repairs were unnecessary? I'm saying $8,000 was spent fixing things that weren't broken while a $47 part sat there causing all the problems. Elijah paused. I tried to tell you 3 weeks ago. I never received. Elijah pulled up the email on his tablet, showed her the metadata. Sent 3 weeks ago, 11:47 p.m., opened by you 3:42 a.m. Moved to spam folder 3:47 a.m. 5 minutes later. The silence was absolute. The crowd stood frozen. Vanessa Sterling had been publicly exposed for reading the solution, then deleting it because it came from the wrong person. Catherine Whitmore stepped forward. Mr. Blackwood, can you fix the car? Yes. How long? 90 minutes. Maybe less. What do you need? A replacement bracket. Ferrari part number 2098847. Any decent supplier should have it in stock. He paused. And I need everyone to step back about 10 feet. I can't work with people breathing down my neck. Catherine turned to Vanessa. Well, are you going to let him try? Vanessa's jaw clenched. Her hands trembled. For a moment, Elijah thought she might explode. But she didn't. Because survivors know when they're beaten. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. Fix the damn car. She turned and walked away, disappeared into her office. The door slammed. The crowd remained, watching, waiting. Catherine made a phone call. Within 20 minutes, a courier arrived with the replacement bracket. Dr. Rodriguez positioned herself where she could observe while explaining to the audience. And Elijah Blackwood began the repair that would change everything. He worked slowly, methodically, refusing to rush. He removed the damaged bracket with surgical precision, handled it like evidence, showed the microfractures to Dr. Rodriguez, who photographed them. This level of stress fracturing typically takes years to develop, she said. It's the kind of failure computerized diagnostics almost never catch, because it doesn't trigger sensor alerts until cascade failure begins. That's why I started tracking thermal signatures. Elijah replied, his hands steady as he prepared the mounting surface. Most problems announce themselves long before they become failures. You just have to know how to read the early warnings. Where did you learn this methodology? Elijah paused. A rare emotion flickered across his face. My grandmother. She cleaned buildings for 40 years, but she understood machines better than most engineers. She sounds remarkable. She was the best person I ever knew. She died when I was 17. Cancer. Couldn't afford the treatments that might have saved her. Rodriguez was silent for a moment. I'm sorry. She'd be proud right now. That's what matters. Elijah returned to his work. The new bracket required precise installation, exactly as he'd described in his report. Engine temperature had to reach 73 degrees Celsius, not 72, not 74. He monitored the reading with unwavering attention. "Why is temperature so critical?" Catherine asked. "Thermal expansion," Elijah explained without looking up. "If you install at the wrong temperature, the bracket's dimensional alignment won't match the mounting surface. You'll create stress points that lead to the same failure pattern within months. And you knew this because I studied the failure mode. The original bracket didn't fail randomly. It probably failed because it was installed during cold weather service. The mounting tolerances were off from day one. It just took time for stress fractures to develop. The engine temperature hit 73 degrees. Elijah began the torque sequence. 22 foot-pounds, he narrated, applied in diagonal pattern. First bolt to 15, second to 15, third to 15, fourth to 15, then final torque in the same sequence. This distributes stress evenly. Dr. Rodriguez recorded everything. I'm going to recommend this methodology to Ferrari's technical team. I've never seen anyone apply such precise thermodynamic principles to bracket installation. It's not routine if you want it to last. Elijah completed the installation, stepped back, wiped his hands. That's it. We need to let the engine cool completely, then bring it back up to operating temperature for testing. Total time about 45 minutes. That's it. Catherine looked skeptical. That's all you did. That's all that needed to be done. The car was never really broken, it just had one small part that wasn't doing its job. He shrugged. $8,000 in repairs, $47 solution. That's the difference between treating symptoms and curing disease. The 45 minutes passed slowly. The crowd drifted but didn't leave. Vanessa emerged from her office at some point, standing at the back, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. When the engine had cooled and reheated according to specifications, Elijah climbed into the driver's seat. The Ferrari's leather interior smelled like wealth and privilege. He turned the key. The engine roared to life, not just running, singing. A clean, pure tone that made several people close their eyes in appreciation. Elijah revved the engine once, twice, 3 times. Each time the response was immediate, smooth, no hesitation. Listen to that. Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice filled with wonder. That's a perfect idle, better than factory specifications. Elijah put the car in gear, executed a series of maneuvers across the showroom. starts and stops, acceleration and deceleration, every condition that had previously triggered stalling. The Ferrari performed flawlessly. He pulled back to the starting position, shut off the engine. The silence that followed was profound. Then Catherine Whitmore started clapping. The crowd joined in, 50 people applauding. Phones captured the moment. Social media notifications began buzzing. Elijah stepped out and faced the crowd. His expression was composed, dignified, but his eyes burned with quiet victory. Dr. Rodriguez approached, hand extended. "Mr. Blackwood, that was the most impressive diagnostic and repair work I've seen in 25 years. I'd like to discuss documenting your methodology for academic publication." "I'd be honored, Dr. Rodriguez." "Elena, please." "Elijah." They shook hands. Catherine Whitmore was next. Her handshake was firm. "We had an agreement, Mr. Blackwood. We did. You exceeded my expectations." Catherine's eyes moved to the back where Vanessa Sterling stood frozen. Now it's time to see if Ms. Sterling exceeds hers. The crowd parted as Catherine walked toward Vanessa. The two women faced each other. "Vanessa." Catherine's voice was clear, carrying to every corner. "Your detailer just solved a problem 5 certified specialists couldn't handle. He did it in 90 minutes with a $47 part, in front of your most important clients." Vanessa said nothing. "You also made a public promise, in front of witnesses, on camera. The Ferrari is his if he can fix it. Those were your exact words. That was a joke. Entertainment. No reasonable person. I'm a reasonable person." Catherine's voice hardened. "So is Dr. Rodriguez. So are the 50 people who recorded you." She stepped closer. "You have 2 choices, Vanessa. Honor your word and maintain whatever credibility you have left, or try to weasel out and watch your reputation and your business disappear overnight." Vanessa's face contorted through rage, humiliation, and finally something that looked like defeat. She walked to Elijah. Her heels clicked against marble. The crowd watched in silence. She stopped in front of him. Their eyes met. "The car," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is yours." The crowd erupted. Phones waved. People shouted congratulations, but Elijah didn't celebrate. He looked at Vanessa Sterling and felt only steady certainty. "Thank you, Ms. Sterling." Vanessa flinched. "Don't thank me. Don't you dare." Her voice cracked. "You think you've won something. You think this changes who you are. It doesn't need to change who I am." Elijah held her gaze. "I've always known who I am. Today everyone else found out." He pulled the Ferrari keys from his pocket, held them up. She was right about everything. He turned and walked toward the Ferrari. His Ferrari. Behind him, Vanessa Sterling stood alone, surrounded by clients who no longer looked at her with respect, watched by cameras that had captured her downfall, destroyed by the person she'd tried to destroy. But then from the entrance a voice called out, a child's voice, small, confused, frightened. "Dad," Elijah turned, and there, standing in the doorway, held by a woman from Oakmont Elementary's aftercare program, was Micah, his son, 8 years old, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, they said you were in trouble. They said you did something bad. Is that true?" The showroom went completely silent. Every phone turned toward the child, and Elijah Blackwood, who had just won a Ferrari worth $350,000, who had just proven himself in front of 50 witnesses, felt his heart break and heal in the same instant. He walked toward his son, knelt down to eye level. Everything else, the Ferrari, the crowd, the victory, disappeared. All that mattered was the boy in front of him. Elijah knelt in front of Micah. The showroom had gone silent. 50 people, 50 phones, all watching. Micah's face was streaked with tears. His Superman backpack hung from one shoulder. His eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "Dad, Mrs. Patterson from aftercare said people were calling the school, saying you were on the news, saying you stole a car." His voice broke. "You didn't steal a car, right?" Elijah put his hands on his son's shoulders. "Gentle, steady, nobody, I didn't steal anything." "Then why are all these people here? Why are they recording you?" "Because I fixed something that was broken, and some people didn't think I could do it." Micah looked past his father at the Ferrari, at the crowd, at Vanessa Sterling standing alone at the back, her face pale. "Is that the mean lady from yesterday?" "Yeah, buddy, that's her." "Did she say sorry yet?" Elijah almost smiled. The simple logic of an 8-year-old. Someone does something mean, they should apologize. "Not yet." "She should." Micah wiped his eyes. "Grandma Rose always said people who are mean are just scared of something." Grandma Rose was right about that, too. Elijah stood up, kept one hand on Micah's shoulder, turned to face the crowd. Dr. Rodriguez was watching with tears in her eyes. Catherine Whitmore had her hand over her mouth. Ray Sullivan stood near the service entrance witnessing history. Elijah took a breath. "My son is here because someone called his school claiming I was in trouble, claiming I had done something criminal." His voice was level, clear. "I want everyone to understand something. 15 years ago, when I was 23, I made a mistake. I drove drunk. I got arrested. I went to jail." Micah's hand found his father's, squeezed tight. "I served my time. I paid my debt. I've been sober ever since. That mistake doesn't define me. It's part of my story, but it's not the whole story." He looked at Vanessa. "Some people think that mistake disqualifies me from having talent, from having knowledge, from deserving respect." Elijah's voice didn't rise. "But my son doesn't think that. My grandmother didn't think that. And the Ferrari I just fixed doesn't care about my criminal record. It only cares whether I know how to listen." He knelt down again, eye level with Micah. "Buddy, you asked if I did something bad. The answer is yes, a long time ago, but I learned from it. I became better because of it, and today I did something good, something that proves talent doesn't need permission. Micah studied his father's face. "Can you fix the car, Dad?" "I already did." "Then show them." Elijah's throat tightened. "You think I should?" "Grandma Rose would want you to." Simple wisdom from a child who had never met his great-grandmother but carried her lessons. Elijah stood, looked at the crowd. "My son says I should show you, so I will." He walked to the Ferrari. Micah followed, hand gripping his father's. Elijah opened the passenger door. "Get in, buddy." "Really? Really?" Micah climbed in. His eyes went wide. The leather, the carbon fiber, the dashboard, everything an 8-year-old dreams about. Elijah walked around to the driver's side, climbed in, adjusted the seat. The showroom held its breath. He turned the key. The engine roared to life, that perfect singing tone. Micah's face lit up. "Dad, this is awesome!" "Yeah, buddy, it is." Elijah put the car in gear, drove slowly around the showroom, every movement deliberate, controlled, showing the 50 witnesses this wasn't a fluke, this was mastery. He accelerated. The Ferrari responded instantly, smooth, powerful. He decelerated, no hesitation, no stalling. He drove figure eights around the displays, stopped precisely, reversed, accelerated again, every maneuver flawless. Micah laughed, pure unfiltered joy. The kind that makes fathers remember why they fight so hard for this. For these moments when your son looks at you like you're a hero. Elijah pulled the Ferrari back to its original position, parked perfectly, turned off the engine. The silence that followed was sacred. Then Dr. Rodriguez started clapping again. Catherine joined her. Ray, the other staff, the VIP clients. One by one, the entire showroom rose. Standing ovation. Not for the Ferrari, not for the repair, for the man who had just shown his son that dignity and talent are things you carry inside. Elijah and Micah climbed out, father and son standing together. "Dad," Micah whispered, "does this mean we can keep the car?" Elijah looked at the Ferrari. $350,000, more money than he'd make in 10 years. Then he looked at his son. "We'll see, buddy. First we got to figure out insurance." Micah giggled. Catherine Whitmore approached. "Mr. Blackwood, I believe Ms. Sterling owes you something." Elijah turned. Vanessa stood exactly where she'd been. But something in her face had changed. The anger was still there, the humiliation, but underneath something else, defeat, real complete defeat. She walked forward, each step an effort. She stopped in front of Elijah and Micah, looked down at the boy, then up at the father. "The car is yours," she said, "per my public promise." Her voice was mechanical, the voice of someone going through motions because they had no choice. But Elijah heard something underneath, the first crack in a wall built over 45 years. "Thank you, Ms. Sterling." She flinched. "Don't." She started, stopped, took a breath. "You won. You proved your point." "I didn't humiliate you," Elijah said quietly. "I just stopped letting you humiliate me. There's a difference." Vanessa's eyes flashed. Is there? Yeah. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it so my son would see that talent matters more than credentials. That truth matters more than titles. Elijah glanced down at Micah. I did it so he'd never feel invisible. Well, congratulations, you're very visible now. Vanessa's voice was bitter. And She didn't finish. Because the truth was too heavy, she was ruined. Catherine Whitmore stepped forward. Vanessa, I think we should talk, privately, about what you're canceling your order. I know. Not just me. Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. I've been making calls, the Nelson family, the Whitaker Trust, the Morrison estate. Vanessa's face went even paler. And $6.7 million in canceled orders so far. The number hung in the air. Vanessa swayed, put her hand on a display table to steady herself. I see. There's more. The board called an emergency meeting 20 minutes ago. They want to see you now. The board meeting happened in Vanessa's office. Elijah wasn't invited, didn't need to be. He could see through the glass walls as 5 board members sat around Vanessa's desk. He stood in the showroom with Micah watching. Ray appeared at his elbow. It's over, Ray said quietly. She's done. How do you know? Because Richard Preston just walked in. Elijah looked. Vanessa's husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, had entered the office. Tall, distinguished, 50 years old. He wasn't looking at Vanessa. Through the glass they could see him addressing the board. Vanessa sitting perfectly still, frozen. Catherine stood beside Elijah now. He filed for divorce this morning, she said, and resigned as CFO an hour ago. Why? Elijah asked. He could have stayed quiet. Because he's not evil, just complicit. Catherine paused. There's a difference between being a villain and enabling one. He's choosing to acknowledge which one he was. The office door opened. Richard Preston emerged. He walked directly to Elijah, extended his hand. Mr. Blackwood, I owe you an apology. Elijah shook his hand. For what? For not seeing, for not stopping it, for benefiting from a culture that treated people like you as less than human. Richard's voice was practiced, like he'd been rehearsing. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I'm just acknowledging what I should have acknowledged years ago. He looked down at Micah. You have a remarkable father, young man. I hope you know that. Micah nodded. I do. Richard turned to the assembled crowd. I want everyone here to know. I've resigned as CFO. I've filed for divorce, and I'm establishing a scholarship fund in Mr. Blackwood's name. Full tuition for automotive vocational training, for students who have talent but not credentials. He paused. It won't undo the damage, but it's a start. Then he walked out of the showroom. Just like that, no fanfare, just a man accepting consequences. The board members emerged next. One by one, none looked at Vanessa through the glass. The last one paused, spoke to Catherine. Ms. Sterling has been placed on immediate administrative leave. Investigation begins Monday. The board will make a final determination within 30 days. And in the meantime, I'm interim CEO. The board member looked at Elijah. Mr. Blackwood, on behalf of Prestige Motors, I apologize. What happened here was unacceptable. We'll do better. See that you do, Catherine said before Elijah could respond. The board member nodded, left, and through the glass walls Vanessa Sterling sat alone at her desk. Perfectly still, perfectly isolated, the queen of her empire watching it crumble. Elijah didn't stay to watch Vanessa's final moments. He had what he came for, the truth, the vindication. He had the Ferrari keys. He had his son's hand in his. That was enough. Come on, buddy, let's go home. In the Ferrari, Elijah looked at the car, then at his 12-year-old Honda Accord in the parking lot. Not today. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Tonight we celebrate with takeout. Boring, Micah said. But he was smiling. They walked toward the exit. Catherine caught up with them in the parking lot. Mr. Blackwood, wait. Elijah turned. I meant what I said about the consulting position. $750 an hour, 20 hours a month minimum. That's $15,000 a month. Elijah's brain stuttered over the number. Mrs. Whitmore. Catherine. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll come by Tuesday to meet the team. Say you'll let me introduce you to people who appreciate real talent. Why are you doing this? Catherine smiled. Because 32 years ago someone gave me my first real opportunity. Told me the only thing I had to do in return was open a door for someone else when I could afford to. She looked at Elijah. You're that someone. Your son is watching. Let him see what happens when talent gets opportunity. Elijah looked down at Micah. His son was watching, eyes wide, listening, learning what it means when someone sees you. I'll be there Tuesday, Elijah said. 10 a.m. Perfect. Catherine started to leave, then turned back. One more thing. Dr. Rodriguez called UCLA. They want to offer you a position. Research assistant in automotive engineering, part-time. $68,000 a year plus full tuition benefits. I don't have a bachelor's degree. They're waiving the requirement based on demonstrated expertise. Dr. Rodriguez's recommendation. Elijah couldn't speak. Numbers swimming in his head. $15,000 a month from Catherine. $68,000 a year from UCLA. More money than Grandma Rose had made in her entire life. Mr. Blackwood. Catherine was watching him. Are you okay? Elijah's voice caught. I'm trying to remember how to breathe. Catherine laughed. Warm, genuine. Take your time. The offers aren't going anywhere. She walked to her Bentley. Elijah and Micah stood in the parking lot, father and son. The evening sun casting long shadows. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Are we rich now? Elijah thought about it. We're going to be okay, Micah. Better than okay. We're going to have choices. Because you fixed the car. Because I listened. Because I learned. Because I refused to believe that invisible meant worthless. He knelt down, eye level with his son. You remember this, buddy. Remember today. Remember that talent doesn't need permission. That dignity isn't something people give you. That truth always comes out if you're patient enough. Micah nodded, serious, understanding. I'll remember, Dad. They drove home in the Honda Accord past Beverly Hills mansions, past wealth and privilege that had never been theirs, but tonight it felt different. Tonight the invisible man had become undeniable. 3 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of a 2-bedroom apartment in Culver City. Not Beverly Hills, but nicer than the old place, much nicer. Elijah stood in the kitchen making coffee. Real coffee. The good kind. Micah sat at the table eating breakfast. Oatmeal with honey and banana. Some things didn't need to change, but the stress was gone. The fear of eviction notices, the terror of choosing between rent and food, that weight had lifted. Elijah now made $83,000 from UCLA. Another $180,000 from Catherine's consulting work. After taxes and Micah's college fund, he was clearing about $14,000 a month. More than he'd dreamed possible. Micah's new school was better. The teachers knew his name. The other parents didn't look at Elijah like he was the help. Small things, but they mattered. Dad, we're going to be late. I know, buddy, 5 minutes. Today was important. Today Elijah was meeting someone. They drove to UCLA in the Honda Accord. Elijah had sold the Ferrari 3 weeks ago. Got $280,000 for it below market value due to the notoriety, but still life-changing money. Put half in Micah's college fund, half in savings. Catherine had been disappointed. You could have kept it. It was beautiful, Elijah had said, but it wasn't mine. Not really. It was a symbol, and I don't need symbols anymore. I need security. She'd understood. The UCLA engineering lab was buzzing when they arrived. Dr. Rodriguez met them at the entrance. Elijah, Micah, perfect timing. He here? Waiting in the diagnostic bay, nervous as hell. They walked through the facility, past students working on engines, past equipment that cost more than Elijah's annual salary. In the diagnostic bay, a young man stood beside a Honda Civic. 19 years old, black, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that had seen better days. He turned when they entered. His eyes went wide. Mr. Blackwood, you must be Darius. Darius Montgomery, 19. Raised by his grandmother in Compton, self-taught mechanic, brilliant, overlooked, just like Elijah had been. Sir, I can't believe, thank you for agreeing to meet me. Dr. Rodriguez said you might have a position, but I didn't think. Let me see your notebook. Darius fumbled in his backpack, pulled out a worn spiral notebook. handed it over with trembling hands. Elijah flipped through the pages. Diagnostic notes, hand-drawn diagrams, acoustic frequency measurements, thermal analysis, all crude, all self-taught, all brilliant. Who taught you this? Nobody, sir. I listened to the cars. Elijah looked up, met Darius's eyes. Your grandmother worked with my grandmother, is that right? Yes, sir. Jefferson Medical Center, night shift janitorial crew 20 years ago. What was her name? Loretta Montgomery. She passed 2 years ago, cancer. Elijah's chest tightened. Another grandmother, another woman who cleaned buildings and understood machines. Another generation of invisible talent. Loretta told you to find me. Yes, sir. Before she died, she said if anyone would give me a chance, it would be Rose Blackwood's grandson. Elijah closed the notebook, handed it back. You start Monday, $18 an hour, 20 hours a week. You'll work with me on Catherine Whitmore's collection. You'll audit my classes here for free. You'll learn everything I know. Darius's eyes filled with tears. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll work hard. Say you'll listen. Say you'll pass it on when it's your turn. I will, I promise. I know you won't. Elijah put his hand on Darius's shoulder. Because talent doesn't need permission, it just needs opportunity. He turned to Micah. Buddy, this is Darius. He's going to be working with us. Micah extended his hand, serious, formal. Nice to meet you, Darius. Darius shook it. Nice to meet you too, man. Dr. Rodriguez watched from the doorway, smiling. You're building something, Elijah. I'm just passing it on. 6 months later, the grand opening of the Rose Blackwood Automotive Academy happened on a Saturday in October. The building was modest, a converted warehouse in South Los Angeles. Nothing fancy. But it was theirs, funded by Catherine Whitmore's foundation, Richard Preston's scholarship fund, donations from people who had seen the viral video. 50 million views now, the story had spread, and from those 50 million views came enough money to build something permanent, a place where talent mattered more than credentials. Where listening mattered more than degrees, where invisible people could become undeniable. 200 people gathered for the opening. Elijah stood at the podium, Micah beside him, 9 years old now, taller. My grandmother Rose Blackwood cleaned hospital floors for 40 years. She made $8.50 an hour. Never got a raise, never got recognition. His voice carried across the crowd. But she knew something the world forgot. She knew that talent doesn't need permission. That truth announces itself if you listen. That dignity is something you carry. He paused. This academy exists to prove she was right, to give opportunities to people who have talent but not credentials, who have been invisible but deserve to be seen. Elijah looked at Darius, standing in the front row, 6 months of training. Already one of the best diagnostic technicians Catherine had ever worked with. My first student is here today, Darius Montgomery. His grandmother worked with mine, cleaned the same buildings, understood the same truths. Darius nodded, smiled. He'll teach the first class tomorrow, teaching what I taught him, what Grandma Rose taught me, how to listen. Micah stepped forward, holding a ribbon, red, bright. Together, father and son cut the ribbon. The Rose Blackwood Automotive Academy was officially open. After the ceremony, Elijah and Micah drove to Oakland, to the cemetery where Grandma Rose was buried. They stood in front of her headstone, simple, granite. Elijah knelt down, placed a wrench on the grave, the same wrench she'd used to teach him 24 years ago. We did it, Grandma. The academy opened today. Darius is teaching. Micah is learning. The cycle continues. Micah placed flowers next to the wrench. Great-grandma, I wish I could have met you. Dad says you were the smartest person he ever knew. Elijah put his arm around his son. She was, and she'd be proud of you, buddy. They stood in silence. Then Micah said something that broke Elijah's heart in the best way. Dad, when I grow up, I want to teach people like you teach Darius. Pass it on. Elijah couldn't speak, could only nod, because that was the point. Not the Ferrari, not the money, not the vindication. The point was this: standing at his grandmother's grave with his son, knowing the cycle would continue. One generation at a time. One student at a time. One person listening to truth. 1 year later, Elijah stood in the diagnostic bay at UCLA, teaching a class of 30 students, 15 from the Rose Blackwood Academy, 15 from traditional programs, all learning to listen. Dr. Rodriguez sat in the back row, smiling, watching her research assistant become something more. A teacher, a mentor, a living example that credentials don't make you capable. Listening does. After class, Elijah drove to Catherine's facility. The collection had grown, 20 cars now, each maintained to perfection. Darius was there, training 2 new apprentices. Ray Sullivan had joined them too, retired from Prestige Motors. Happier than he'd been in years. How was class? Ray asked. Good, we're covering harmonic resonance next week. The thing that started all this. Yeah, the frequency that changed everything. Catherine appeared from her office. Elijah, you have a visitor. Who? She didn't say, but she's driving a 2019 Honda Accord. Elijah walked to the entrance. A woman stood there, 46 years old, blonde, wearing jeans and an AutoZone polo shirt. Vanessa Sterling. She looked different, older, tired, but something in her eyes had changed. Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry to show up unannounced. I wanted to see what you built. How did you find this place? The internet. Your story is everywhere. She paused. You changed the world. I just listened. No, you did more. You proved something I spent my whole life denying. That talent doesn't need credentials. That excellence comes from everywhere. Elijah was silent. I'm still donating to the scholarship fund, Vanessa continued. 500 a month. It's what I can afford. I know. I see the deposits. Thank you. Don't thank me. She stopped. I'm not here for forgiveness. I wanted you to know something. You were right about everything. She turned to leave. Ms. Sterling, Elijah called. She stopped. The academy needs volunteer instructors, people who know the business side, who can teach students how to navigate the industry. He paused. How to avoid making the mistakes you made. Vanessa stared at him. You're offering me a position. I'm offering you a chance to do something good, to teach what you learned the hard way. Why would you do that? Because redemption is possible, not guaranteed. Not easy, but possible, if you're willing to work. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve this. No, you don't. But my students deserve to learn from someone who knows how assumptions destroy, how the system breaks people. He paused. Thursday nights, 7 to 9. Business practices and ethics, minimum wage. I'll take it, she whispered. Thank you. She left. Catherine appeared at Elijah's side. That was generous. It was necessary. That evening, Elijah and Micah sat on the balcony of their apartment. The Ferrari had been replaced with a Toyota. Reliable, boring, perfect. But in the garage below sat something else, a 1967 Honda Civic, the same year as Grandma Rose's car, restored, running perfectly. One day he'd teach Micah how to fix it. The cycle would continue. Micah was reading about automotive engineering. 9 years old and already fascinated. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Do you miss the Ferrari? Elijah thought about it. No, it was never about the Ferrari. What was it about? It was about proving truth announces itself if you listen. That talent doesn't need permission. That invisible people can become undeniable if they're patient enough. Micah nodded, understanding. Grandma Rose was right. About everything. Elijah smiled, put his arm around his son. Below them the city lights sparkled. Somewhere out there Darius was teaching his first solo class. Somewhere out there students at the academy were learning to listen. Somewhere out there Vanessa Sterling was trying to become better. And somewhere in the space between memory and hope Rose Blackwood smiled. Because her grandson had done it. He'd proven that talent survives, that dignity carries, that truth wins. Not because the world is fair, but because some people refuse to accept that it isn't. Elijah Blackwood had been one of those people. His son would be another, and the cycle would continue forever.